Hello everyone, this is Bobbin Threadbare, and welcome back to The Longest Journey.
Oh God, my guts have been cleaned out and I still feel sick.
We'll actually be packing this chapter into a single video. It's quite short. Alright, first diary entry here.
Why does the horizon have to keep rolling back and forth like that?
Yeah, warning to all my motion-sick viewers.
That's the cargo hold and crew quarters down there. My bed's conveniently located right below the opening to accommodate for those refreshing saltwater showers.
The horizon will continue moving throughout the video, so...
It's the apple barrel. It's half empty, and aside from whatever fish we're able to catch, those apples are the only food we got on board.
Huh. Sounds like you're under-provisioned. Only 2 food sources.
Those are the captain's private quarters and offices. It's a glass orb with a strange magical glow. It could be some kind of compass, I guess. Why does the horizon have to keep...
So that's not new.
It's Captain Nebeve. Captain?
Hi, what is it?
Now it's actually appropriate that he's always carrying that spyglass.
How long will it take us to get to Elias?
We should reach the island by tomorrow night, unless we get bad weather.
Any chance of bad weather?
Well, as any experienced sailor will tell you, the weather is a freakish thing, and you never know quite what to expect. But no chance of a storm at all, or my nose would be itching.
What does your nose have to do with the weather?
Well, that's a story, be sure of that.
And?
That's all. It's just a story, and you'd better be sure of that.
I'd like to hear that itchy nose story.
Why?
Because I'm sure it's a real tall tale of the sea, filled with bravura adventures and victories snatched from the rabid jaws of certain death.
I had a bad accident with my nose hair scissors, and ever since that day, when the weather's acting up, my nose itches.
You gotta be careful when you trim those nose hairs.
Aye. I've come to that realization on my own.
So, your nose itches when the weather's bad.
A deep, scarring itch, as from the filthy bowels of the Mojal.
Do you know any sea shanties?
Jal be thanked I do not know a single one.
Not even a ho-ho-ho on a dead man's casket or something like that?
If I went ho-ho-ho on a dead man's casket, girl, the crew would tie me up in the hold. With good reason, too.
Would you like to learn a sea shanty?
No. Actually, there is nothing in the world I want less than to learn a sea shanty. I would rather stick my head up the arse of an Elguan who's just had a dinner rich with beans and light a torch.
You know, it's just a way to pass the time.
I feel in the mood for a shanty.
And I feel in the mood for a keel hauling.
Thanks, Captain.
It's actually Captain. Please try to remember, and while you're at it, cut back on the scurvy sea dog shtick, would you?
Just trying to fit in, sir.
You have as much chance of fitting in here as I do growing a second head, marrying myself, and moving to Coruscant to start a pottery business. Oh, and before you leave, mind you only take 2 apples a day from the apple barrel. We're running a little short, and aside from fish, Jal forbid, we have no other food on board.
was oddly specific.
It's Tunlayak, the navigator. Hello, Tun.
Are you enjoying the ride, April?
Honestly, by the sound of things,
I'd enjoy it a lot more if the ground wasn't moving.
But the ground is not moving. The boat is.
Hey, you try and tell my stomach that.
the ground is moving. Look at those waves.
How are we doing on time?
With the help of your magic, we are crossing faster than I had ever thought possible.
Give credit where credit is due, Lyak. This ship is the fastest there is. I can outrun a shadow ship in this old lady.
When will we be on Elias?
By sunset tomorrow, if the wind holds.
How fast is it possible to travel by sea?
I do not know. I have heard tell of a ship that once went so fast it took to the sky and disappeared. From time to time, sailors spot the ship as it floats across the heavens. It is said to be an omen.
The Flying Dutchman, right?
No, they call it bad luck.
Wouldn't call it the Flying Dutchman. There are no Netherlands.
I have a question about your compass.
Of course.
What kind of compass are you using?
It is just a normal spirit compass. When we are not navigating by the stars or by the sun, we use this.
What's a spirit compass?
I forget that you are not familiar with the sea. A spirit compass points always to the magical North Pole, and thus we may navigate according to it. It is very precise, and less affected by a strong magical source.
Thanks, that's all I needed to know.
I hope this knowledge made you richer.
Keep her steady, Tun.
I will, April.
Alright, sounds like we're on course, so, well, hang on.
Watch! My nose is itching. Are you sleeping on duty again?
Storm front. West. Heading our way. Looks like a right old bugger too.
Arr.
Aye, by the mercy of Jol, it's a chaos storm. Where in damnation did it come from this quickly? And what's pulling it here? Navigator, change our course. We must away from the storm front and to safe harbor.
Uh-oh. I just felt a cold shiver running down my spine.
Okay. So I guess we're not on course anymore.
It's Captain Nebeve.
Let's find out more about that.
Captain? Sir?
Leave me be, girl. I have work to do. We must avoid the storm lest it comes on us like Jol's callous heel and crushes us.
But we're still going to Elias, right?
Ha! You can forget about that. We must avoid the dangerous waters of the islands and head straight for Guyenne if we're to stand a chance of outrunning the storm.
But I have to get to Elias as soon as possible. The fate of worlds depends on it.
And the fate of my ship and my crew depends on us changing our course for Guyenne. Now leave me be.
What's going on, Tun?
A storm approaches, April, and it is no ordinary storm.
What do you mean by no ordinary storm?
Look to the clouds. Do they appear normal to you?
They look strange, it's true.
It is a chaos storm. A strong storm caught in a magical vortex, drawn to strong magic like bees to honey. I have never seen one with my own eyes, but I have heard stories.
What have you heard about chaos storms?
That they appear only rarely, and that they signify great and terrible events in the near future. It is also said that they are weapons used by the Dark Lords of Chaos to hunt and destroy those strong in the balance.
Ah, there we go. That's the explanation.
Can we escape a chaos storm?
If we run fast enough and reach safe harbor, perhaps. I have not heard of a chaos storm to last more than a single night, and this one is still quite a distance away. But it gains fast. I do not know, April.
Will you still be able to get me to Elias tomorrow?
I am afraid not. The captain has ordered our course changed south to get us away from the rocky waters around the islands. We are about 3 days away from Gien, but if the weather improves before then, perhaps he will be willing to turn about. But I would not count on it, April. He cares much for his ship and for his crew, and he would not risk it for anything or anyone.
You still need my magic to get wind in your sails.
The wind seems to be picking up on its own. Thus Nebove has no need for your magic, April. I am sorry, but once we reach Gien, I am certain you will find passage to the islands.
I don't have 3 days, Tun. The balance is failing.
I am sorry. It is out of my hands.
I'll let you go back to work.
Thank you.
You realize you're only going to Elias on a hunch, right? Well, nevertheless, April is going to insist.
Jim? Ugh, gross! People do not toss the apples back into the barrel after eating. Here's a nice plump one.
But yeah, as you might suspect,
It's a juicy red apple.
the game does not continue until April insists on continuing towards Elias despite the warnings. Anyway, we haven't been down here yet, so let's look around.
It's a flour sack. It's a big fat worm.
I wonder if we can grab it.
It got away.
Yeah, if you're gonna reach down from a standing position each time. I guess he's not interested in the apple. Maybe hard candy would work, but probably not when it's dry.
It's a sturdy wooden chest. It's empty. I don't look forward to another night in those. I had a dream I was on a roller coaster all night long, and I can't stand roller coasters. It's a small axe.
Oh, hey, an axe. My axe now. Alright, not sure what else to do down here, but... yeah, we need to fiddle with that compass, so that they'll go the wrong way, which is the right way for April. Because messing with navigation during a storm is the smart thing to do.
It's the talisman of the balance.
This is basically a magic magnet.
I can't do that while somebody's around. Captain? Sir?
Leave me be.
Too busy, I suppose.
I have a question about...
Certainly.
Won't the chaos storm affect the accuracy of the spirit compass?
If the storm catches up with us, perhaps, but I do not think so. Only a very focused magical field in close proximity to the compass would be able to affect it.
Thanks. That's all.
I hope this...
I'll let you...
Thank...
Alright, so yeah, we do in fact need to put that thing next to the compass, but first we need to get the people away from here. Nebove would be the hard one, so we need to give him something...
I feel too sick to eat anything.
So we'll need to give him something else to do. perhaps, worms infecting the, food supply. Alright, so dry hard candy doesn't work, and
He got away.
she's way too slow because she doesn't squat down first.
Assorted candy.
Oh, that works, though.
Oh, God, it's awful. It tastes like mouthwash. It's a sticky, half-eaten piece of candy.
Great.
Dang, clever worm.
Can't stick the worm directly, but we can put it on the flour sack. Across that path it likes to travel.
Yes, got me a worm. And this is good because...
Because worms will also eat apples.
It's a hungry-looking worm. It's a colorful candy wrapper.
It's really more of a grub than a worm anyway.
Get to it, little guy. Eat your heart out.
Right, let's give him the infected apple. See how he reacts.
Captain?
What is it now?
Captain, the worms have invaded the apple barrel.
Cursed be the balance. First the storm, now this. Is there no end to the horrors? Let me see. Jowls infected arsehole, you be right. Those are worms, all right. Vicious, snarling wheat worms driven mad by their hunger for a change of diet.
As far as I could tell, that was the only apple infected. But I could be wrong.
Good of you to catch it, girl, before it spread any further. I'll have to go pluck the apples immediately. They must be saved.
You know, he doesn't walk like he's in a hurry. Anyway, that's the hard part. Let's just talk Tunlayak into leaving.
Do you want me to relieve you at the wheel for a while?
I am not sure if this is such a good idea, April.
What's the big deal? I just hold it straight, right?
Well, I could do with a short break to stretch my legs. Fine, but I will be back soon. And if anything happens, just call out for help.
Of course, thanks.
Also, why is nobody cooking the wheat? Like, you can use flour and just water to make something worth eating.
It's the talisman of the balance.
Alright, though.
So if the compass was pointing in that direction when we were on course for Elias, and now it's pointing in this direction... Oh, hell. I'll just wing it. Use the Force, April. After all, who's the chosen one here? Ton! Need some assistance up here.
We're gonna get everybody killed. New diary entry. Looks like I skipped a page again.
I think I may have strayed off course a bit when I was at the wheel.
I did not feel the boat turning.
Well, I have a feeling we're gonna miss Gien by a couple of 100 kilometers if you don't correct our course.
Let me check the compass. By the balance, you are right, April. It is good you were aware of your mistake, or we might have ended up pierced on the deadly reefs of Tagate. I will correct our course immediately.
Sorry about that.
Oh no, I let you take the wheel. I'm just glad we are back on course.
Yeah, back on course. Is it my imagination, or is the storm getting closer?
By the balance, you are right. The storm is catching up with us. We might have to ride it out. It is good we are nowhere near the islands, or we would have to worry about reefs as well.
Reefs? Nobody said anything about reefs. Tun, I have something to tell you.
Captain! Sir! We need you on the bridge. The storm is closing in.
They told you the waters were rocky and deadly. You didn't need to use the word reef.
By the foul bowels of Jol, you're right, Lyak. It's closing in faster than any storm I've seen or heard, chaos or otherwise. It's like it's chasing something or someone. All right, listen up. The storm's going to hit in an hour or two. And I want everything to be ready. Tighten the hatches, strap down the cargo, wake up the watch, and by Jol's big toe, someone put a lid on the apple barrel.
Damn, that is fast. And now everyone with motion sickness just got worse.
That's not bad. They really should cover this up before the hold is filled with water.
Looks like they took care of the apple barrel. That's something.
He looks very busy. She looks busy.
Well, if they're busy, maybe they won't notice me grabbing this talisman back.
What is that? What is that you have there?
Crap.
It's a necklace I misplaced, but I found it again, so no need to worry.
What was it doing next to the spirit compass? Let me see that necklace right now.
It's a valuable family heirloom. I don't let anybody touch it.
Give it here. This talisman has the mark of the balance and of the sentinel. This is an object of great magic. The balance be cursed, girl. What by Jol's hideous countenance did you think you were doing?
Yeah, might as well come clean at this point.
I need to get to Elias as soon as possible.
So you claim. But do you know what you've done instead? You've put the lives of everyone on this boat in grave danger. With the storm upon us, the last we need is dangerous waters. Thank Jol's assassin, we still may have time to avoid the rocks of the Briston Atoll. But I swear by the honor of the 3 biased judges of Gien that I'll have you before a court if we get to land. Check the compass, Lyak, and correct our course accordingly. And don't let this wench touch anything from now on, you hear? I need to place this accursed talisman as far away from the spirit compass as possible.
So let me just leisurely stroll down into the hold.
She looks busy.
Alright, but we still need that talisman, so we gotta figure out where he left it.
What just happened?
I think you found one of those rocks.
Uh-oh, this can't be a good thing.
Alright, well that chest was open before.
It's closed and locked tight with a big iron padlock. I don't look forward to another night in those hammocks.
Let's see what we've got that can deal with that, maybe. Let's just save first, just in case. Oh yeah, an axe. Sure.
It's been a while since I chopped firewood, but I think I'll be able to knock the lock off pretty clean.
Are you sure? Why are we wielding it left-handed?
Oh, shit!
And so that was the day that April Ryan destroyed a ship and murdered everyone on board. Damn, April. Today, patron Kronish gets a second pick. I've been asked to look at another Dungeons & Dragons tie-in book, but this time to pick one that's based in a different setting. Planescape. And so that's exactly what I've done. Today's book is Pages of Pain, published in 1996 by Troy Denning. The story about the story. So, when I last left off talking about Dungeons & Dragons, I described the launch of the game's second edition and how the Spelljammer setting was a part of that. TSR wanted game settings that broke out of the usual high fantasy mold, and high fantasy spaceflight certainly fits that bill. However, as I mentioned before, Spelljammer was sadly never that popular, and so TSR discontinued it in 1993, less than 5 years after its launch. On the bright side, this freed up some writing and publishing time for other ideas, and so one of the game designers at TSR, Slade Henson, came up with the idea of using the first edition Manual of the Planes and building a new setting off of that. No one did anything at the time, but in 1994, the lead designer of D&D 2nd Edition, Zeb Cook, used Henson's idea and created Planescape. Now let me back up a bit so I can explain what's going on. Back when the first edition rulebooks came out, they contained a brief look at the cosmology of Dungeons & Dragons. There's a positive energy plane where life comes from, there's a negative energy plane where death comes from, and there are air, earth, water, and fire planes where the two energy planes meet. Collectively, these are called the inner planes. The outer planes are more about philosophy. See, in D&D, characters and monsters all have alignments. They can be good, evil, or neutral, and they can be lawful, chaotic, or neutral. Your alignment could change how spells affected you, and change how other people and monsters thought of you. And it also meant you had a secret language you shared only with those of the same alignment. But that last idea was stupid, and so it swiftly died. But your alignment would also determine which afterlife you would go to, with good characters going to the Seven Heavens, Elysium, or Olympus, and evil characters were doomed to the Nine Hells, the Abyss, or Hades. In 1987, just a couple of years before its second edition began, TSR published the Manual of the Planes to expand on the one-page chart in the original player's handbook. It added extra elemental planes between the 4 big ones and between the 2 energy planes, and it describes the outer planes, along with how living mortals can survive there. There's a wizard spell that lets you shift between planes, so it's entirely possible to crash someone's afterlife. Planescape expands on this even further by describing the planes in even more detail and creating a setting hub within the outer planes. The idea is that at the very center of the outer planes there is a giant spike that is infinitely tall, and at the top of this infinite spike there floats a torus, a donut shape. Inside this torus is a city, Sigil, and in Sigil there are an infinite number of portals that can take you to all the planes in existence, assuming you have the right key, of course. A portal in Sigil can be any door, window, arch, or passageway that's closed on all sides, and a key can be literally anything. An actual key, an old mug, a specific person, or even just a thought that runs through your head. As such, people fall through portals accidentally all the time. Something else Planescape does is move away from using words like devil and hell. D&D was targeted for including such things by the family values crowd, who blamed it for, among other things, causing the suicide of a college student in 1980. And to be fair, there is a lot in the original books that overly concerned Christians might object to. Rules and stats for summoning demons, the ability to play objectively evil characters, and pantheistic religions that can grant spells based on biblical miracles. So yeah, to get away from all that bad press, the second edition books renamed some of the outer planes to make them less obviously religious, and they renamed demons Tanari and devils Batazu. It was kind of low effort, but then so was blaming a tabletop game for suicidal tendencies. Incidentally, 3rd edition D&D would bring back the names Demon and Devil, but they kept the lore, and so they say that these are just the mortal names for them, and the exotic names are what they call themselves. Now back to the Planescape setting, there are 2 things you should know about it before I move on. First, the city of Sigil is primarily controlled by 15 factions, and in true Outer Planes fashion, all 15 factions are based around real-life philosophies. For instance, the Fraternity of Order believes that the laws of mortals and the laws of reality exist to be exploited, while the Fated faction believes that might makes right, and that if you can get away with doing something, you should do it. The second thing is the Lady of Pain. Nobody knows who or what the lady is, but if you live in Sigil long enough, you will pick up a couple of basic facts. When she appears, she's a tall, regal woman with a halo of blades. When she's angry, she can condemn a person to a dimension of mazes from which there is only a slim chance of escape. And when she's very angry, she can kill you by letting her shadow fall over you, at which point 1,000 invisible blades will slice you to ribbons. Not much makes the Lady of Pain that angry, but when a god of doors tried to open every portal in Sigil simultaneously, the lady killed him instantly, and killed all of his followers throughout the multiverse while she was at it. Oh, and if you try praying to the Lady of Pain, you are guaranteed to be thrown in the mazes at the very least. Oh, I almost forgot. Troy Denning, the author of Pages of Pain, is a professional author who is also a TSR game designer and helped create the Dark Sun setting. He only writes novels for licensed settings, but he has written a couple dozen of them. But that's enough preparation. Time to begin the story. The book begins with a stanza from Dolores, a poem by Algernon Charles Swinburne, and very possibly the inspiration for the Lady of Pain character. The book proper begins with Pains of the Mind, and it turns out the lady herself is our narrator. She is not, however, the book's protagonist, because the Pages of Pain is the one and only example I have ever seen of a first-person omniscient perspective. But of course, what else could you expect from a being with more power than a god? The actual protagonist of this story is known as the Amnesian Hero, since he's a classic Greek-style hero who lost his memory. And he's known as the Thracian because he currently lives in Thrasos, a town at the base of Mount Olympus. The Thracian has done some heroic deeds since he lost his memories, and so he's been charged by Poseidon himself to bring a large amphora to the city of Sigil and give it to the Lady of Pain herself. However, Sigil is an extension of the lady in more ways than one. For one thing, she knows all that goes on in the city, and so she follows the Thracian around while invisible. In another way, Sigil is gray, dirty, polluted, unfriendly, and rude. Just what you'd expect from a city that's the source of all pain in the multiverse, because that's what the Lady of Pain is. Much like how Zeus is the sky and Poseidon is the ocean, the Lady of Pain is the embodiment and source of pain. And by using the millions of portals that lead to all corners of reality, the Lady spreads the essence of pain to every living creature. Pain takes the form of pustules or burrs that cling to your skin and pass between individuals, and they come in 4 colors to represent the 4 types of pain: agony, anguish, misery, and despair. The lady covers the Thracian with burrs of pain that will swell over time until they pop, and then she takes a step back to watch events unfold. The Thracian is very much an outsider in the cynical city of Sigil, and everywhere he goes, he sticks out like a sore thumb, covered in god-forged armor. He spends some time dealing with Sigil's stifling bureaucracy, but when he says he's here to see the Lady of Pain, they get him a litter and escort him to the lady's gatehouse. However, the gatehouse turns out to be the city's insane asylum. The bureaucrat figured the Thracian must be barmy or crazy, and decided he should be locked up for his own safety. Once the Amnesian hero realizes this, he fights off his escort using his star-forged sword and the help of a fellow escapee named Jake. Jake is a wizard. She's a tiefling, which means she has demon or devil ancestors, and she's a dustman. Dustmen believe that the reality we know is a miserable afterlife. We are all cursed to be reincarnated back into it until we can purge ourselves of all emotions and attachments to this existence. As such, Jake has been helping people escape this existence by killing them with her poison fangs. Jake brings the Thrassin to a bar she knows where they can hide from Sigil's enforcers. But while he's there, the Thrassin has some wine, and a mysterious woman appears before him. The woman is real enough that other people can see and react to her, but she only seems to appear when the Thrassin gets drunk, and disappears as suddenly as she appears. Back with the pursuers, the leader tracking down the Thrassin is an elf named Tasali, a man who works at the gatehouse and belongs to the Bleak Cabal. The Bleak Cabal consists of nihilists, or at least as close as you can get to nihilists, in a setting where life after death and divine powers are confirmed facts, and you can go visit your dead grandfather in literal heaven if you wanted to. Anyway, during the chase, the Thrassin puts his foot in a portal to the para-elemental plane of ooze, and his leg starts liquefying. Jake is only able to stop it by using ice magic to freeze his foot. Eventually, she tells the Thrassin that all he has to do to summon the Lady of Pain is pray to her, although she'll probably kill him when she appears. So the Thrassin prays to the lady by quoting 2 more stanzas from Dolores. This forces the Lady of Pain, who is still our narrator, to respond. The lady shreds the Thrassin's divinely forged armor without even touching him, and the amphora gets cracked in the scuffle. However, the lady eventually leaves and merely banishes him, Jake, and Tasali, since he had just managed to catch up, to her mazes. And with that, we enter Pains of the Flesh. At first, the Thrassin isn't dismayed by this turn of events. He has a golden string he can unwind that always leads to the exit of a maze, although the Lady of Pain mentions in the narration that this won't be of any help. She does create a way out for each person she traps in the mazes, but the exit is not a physical location. Meanwhile, a single pale strand escapes the crack in the amphora and touches the Lady of Pain, giving her a vision of her parents, Poseidon, and the elemental queen of air, along with a fiancé, bringing 4 wedding gifts: agony, anguish, misery, and despair. Back with the Amnesian hero, he, Jake, and Tasali have decided to join forces because they've got bigger problems than each other now. As such, when the maze heats up and the Thrassin's foot starts to melt, Tasali transmutes it into a brick, since he can't actually heal it. The 3 follow the golden thread after that, but over time the heat becomes unbearable, and it does not help when it starts hailing. The group hears some distant roaring and realize that the lady's labyrinth comes complete with a monster. When the golden string starts bobbing, they ready themselves for battle, but the reason for the bobbing turns out to be a Barriar, a kind of sheep centaur. The Barriar is named Silverwind, and he belongs to the Sign of One, the faction full of people who each believe that they are the only true person in existence, and everything around them is created by their imagination. The Thrassin and the others play along with Silverwind's beliefs and offer to let him join because he's a cleric who knows healing spells, and he has an unfailing sense of direction and can lead them right back to where he found the golden thread. However, it's at about this point that the monster of the labyrinth attacks. The Thrassin cuts off her arm, but she reattaches it to her stump, and it starts working again. The group eventually escape through a conjunction, an utterly black square that sometimes shoots gouts of fire, but otherwise leads to a different part of the labyrinth. The heat and hail are gone, and instead there's a thick layer of ash on everything. Oh, and then a black scrap of cloth escapes the amphora, and instead of heading for the Lady of Pain, it turns into a giant named Periphetes that the Thrassin has to kill. A giant the Amnesian hero distinctly remembers having faced once before. The giant turns into a boulder after he dies, and when the Thrasin moves the boulder, he finds a pair of sandals and a fine sword. After much deliberation, the Thrasin puts on the sandals, and he gets a vision of his mother, and the journey he had to go on to meet his father, the king. He also hears his real name, Theseus. Then, because Theseus drank some of Silverwind's wine, the mystery woman reappears and leads him away from the group. She also chides him for forgetting all about her, and when she vanishes, the book switches to Pains of the Heart. At this point, the Lady of Pain has had enough of being tormented by a single memory fragment, so she appears in the maze to retrieve the amphora. Theseus has left it with the group, and when Tasali decides to grab it or throw it over the side, the lady cuts off his hands with a single gesture. The group then decides to risk falling into a new area by jumping over the maze wall to escape. The Lady of Pain starts pulling golden hairs one by one from the cracked amphora. She sees herself at her engagement party, having been promised to Set, the Egyptian god of chaos and violence. However, she's thinking of running away with Baphomet, a devil figure apparently made up to discredit the Knights Templar in the 14th century. The lady and Baphomet escape to the river Styx, whose true name is the River Lethe, and they plan to drink the waters and forget everything, and thus be free of the past. However, the lady also wants to be free of Baphomet, who literally stole her heart. But when she tricks him into the river, her heart falls in too. But then the Lady of Pain realizes that she wouldn't know the Styx's true name if she drank from its waters, and she realizes the amphora was Poseidon's trap all along. Still, we aren't done with Theseus just yet. Having been separated from the group, Theseus stumbles through the maze alone, until he happens upon a group of people with maze blight, a wasting disease like leprosy that sets in when you've been stuck in the Lady's Labyrinth for too long. One of the maze-blighted is a Tanari, a chaotic demon, who is probably a Balor based on his description. For reference, Balors are some of the most powerful demons around. The Balor, Karfud, strikes a deal with Theseus. Karfud will help Theseus and his allies to the best of his ability, and once Theseus dies, he will get to keep his Starforged sword. Of course, that's not his real motivation. It takes Theseus some time to figure it out, but he eventually realizes that Karfud wants to make the mazes his own personal domain. But to do that, he needs to kill the monster. And to kill the monster, he needs Theseus. And Theseus needs Karfud, because the monster took the amphora after the Lady of Pain left, and Theseus is now certain that it also contains his memories. With Karfud's help, Theseus reunites with his companions and explains how he made a deal with the demon. Karfud then replaces Theseus's brick foot with one of Tasali's sliced-off hands, and as they wait for the monster to attack, Karfud describes to each companion the personal revelation they have to come to in order to escape the lady's mazes. In particular, Theseus needs to realize that he calls himself a hero in order to avoid the guilt he feels for all the terrible things he's done over the years. Theseus left Ariadne, the mystery woman, on the Isle of Naxos as a sacrifice to Dionysus, despite how she helped him escape the Labyrinth of Crete. And he forgot to switch the black sails on his ship, and so his father thought he was dead and threw himself off a cliff. And this stuff is directly from the original myths, mind you. As the book makes its final shift to the pains of its spirit, Dionysus uses Ariadne to send Theseus a vision and give him the ability to see and touch the pustules of pain. We then get an extended sequence of fighting and tracking between Theseus's party and the monster. Jake gets hit and dies, but then she's a dustman, and so that is her way out of the maze. The monster captures Silverwind to use as bait, and at one point she even tears off her own pelt to use as a decoy. Karfud eventually kills Silverwind to use his skin as a map for the mazes, but later he dies after another fight with the monster. In the end, Theseus chooses to save his remaining companion Tasali rather than recover his memories, finally doing something good instead of something glorious. And for doing that, Theseus and Thessaly escape the mazes. There's a short epilogue after that. Theseus jumps into a portal to the lower planes and seeks out the river Lethe so that he can drink its waters and forget all his pain, grief, and regrets. But then he realizes that if he drinks, if he forgets again, nothing will change. He'll make the same mistakes again and have even more deaths on his conscience. And as he sees the demonic tinge in his reflection, Theseus realizes that it is better to bear the pain of one's actions than to turn one's back on a demon. The analysis. Pages of Pain certainly lives up to the name, because this book is indeed all about pain. It's about agony, the physical pain of getting burned or being slashed with a blade. It's about anguish, the long-term pain of being thirsty or starving or running a fever. It's about misery, the emotional pain of being somewhere you hate or being forced to work with someone you cannot stand. And it's about despair, the death of hope that comes when you realize that you will never get through to someone, or when your long-sought-after memories turn out to consist entirely of your greatest failures. However, this book is not about wallowing in the misery of others. You may be able to get some schadenfreude from reading the pages of pain, but that's not the main theme of the book. The Lady of Pain has an almost conversational tone when she inserts herself into the narrative, and she speaks to the reader directly on several occasions. During some of these asides, she justifies the existence of pain in all its forms. If we didn't feel pain from doing the wrong things, we wouldn't learn to do the right things. The crucible of pain makes us stronger and smarter, and painful moments can define who we are, determine what we care about, and discover where we need to go next. The Lady of Pain lives where she does and defends herself so ruthlessly because she knows that the four pains cannot fall into biased hands. An evil deity would ignore the instructional purpose of pain and only use it as a weapon to bring the multiverse to its knees. But a good deity would do something even worse. They would lock pain away and consign the multiverse to an endless existence of bland nothingness. How can you love someone if you feel nothing when they die? How can we feel sympathy for others when neither they nor we feel any misery or despair when they experience tragedy or setbacks? And so, the protagonists of Pages of Pain, even the Lady of Pain herself, experience pain in one form or another, and in most cases they get hit by all four types by the end of the book. And, as the lady points out, even the audience gets to experience some amount of pain, because we empathize with the characters. The Lady of Pain even betrays us. She promises at one point that Theseus and all of his companions will come out of the mazes as stronger people, but then two of them die before they get out. Pages of Pain doesn't wallow in pain, it celebrates it. It both tells and shows us that pain is a part of life. And while we should try to avoid it, since learning to avoid things is the function of pain, we should never try to get rid of it altogether. Pain is a teacher, a spice of life, a constant companion, and so no matter how unpleasant it is in all its varied forms, we should be willing to acknowledge all of the things that pain does to help us. Thanks for joining me again for today's book review, and I hope I'll see you next time for my first adaptation comparison. I've already covered the novel, but next it'll be the movie's turn.